Thanks, Marty. You know, I jumped at the chance to do this every 3 months when your magazine comes here. It's the thing I put in my briefcase, take home to read on. You know, I get a lot of magazines, but I always try to do it on my spare time. And yours is the first one I put in a bag and take home or put on the airplane. So, and I was a little, worried about coming yesterday, but it was well worth it. Interesting dialogue, smart grid discussion has been very interesting to me too. So, one of the things that I want to talk a little bit about, I'm going to talk about where we've been and how we're going to get there, the power renaissance and what's happening at ground zero. I probably, from a CEO perspective, run a shop that you'll see we have to deal with a lot of power issues, and I'm a little closer from a CEO perspective than a lot of people probably. Marty did a pretty good job. The only thing I would tell you that we are member-owned. You have to be a municipal electric system. We have 126 in 6 states. We go from one that has 112 meters up to utilities that have 90,000 meters. Yes. We serve about almost 550,000 customers. We provide wholesale power to the municipal electric systems. We get the electrons to their substations. That's our primary focus. We buy power wholesale. We are asset poor. We have been through the Renaissance. 1992, the Federal Power Act says we're going to market-based rates. Okay, fine. In Ohio, we go to restructuring legislation, says we're going to give customers choice. Fine, 10 years. So that rolled off this year. Investor-owned utilities in Ohio had price caps on their rates, and so we've seen our municipal rates bump up. We used to be 30-40% disparity in rates. We are about 5 to 10% depending on what utility. But we sat on the sidelines waiting to say, okay, see, you're not going to build any billion-dollar plants because these markets are going to get competitive. So we're going to sit and wait and see what happens. And wait we did. Today, we're dependent on the market for 62% of our base load needs. That's 24/7. We're dependent on the market, meaning we have to buy from the market for 95% of our intermediate needs, 5x16. The price spikes in 98, 99, the price volatility, we plunked in a bunch of CTs and diesels behind the meter to beat these price spikes. We were one that paid $3,200 a megawatt hour for one month, or for 1 hour, excuse me. You know what that did to our price in July? Our normal power bill back in 98 for the month of July was about $20 million for all of our members. You know what it was that month? $40 million. Okay? So that's what happened to the markets. And then we went to RTOs. RTOs were supposed to be created to be the traffic cop, to control the electrons between the transmission grid. FERC had a better idea. They decided we were going to go to electric energy markets. That was not the concept. So we sat in PJM and MISO. We have a 50-50 footprint spread between MISO and PJM. So we had to deal with the energy markets as well. So we are in the energy markets today. Along with that, we have wholesale price rising. They are going down today. They're tracking down, obviously, but they will go up. I think Mr. Nussbaum said, yes, energy prices are going up. This is a short term. We will survive. The economy will get better, and prices will start going up. I believe T. Boone Pickens. We may get to $3.50, $3 gas, but it will get back up there. What we're seeing, decreasing supply, increasing demand, higher fuel cost, increasing environmental cost, increasing construction cost, impending carbon regulation, and a dysfunctional market, as I explained. Utilities, especially transmission dependent, which we are, we own very little transmission, will have to be increasingly creative and strategic in terms of power supply. Increasing demand in renewable generation. The RPS standards, or the RES standards as they call them today, passed in many states and under consideration in Congress, will put additional pressure on utilities. We need to be prepared for the upcoming carbon regulations. It's coming. We know it. It's been coming. In fact, quite frankly, I wish it would just happen so we can all get a roadmap to figure out what we need to do. I think that's one of the things that the utilities, a lot of us get beat up on, is the fact that we don't know what game we're playing on what day. We don't know what the carbon cap and trade is going to be. We've watched the RTO markets. We had to race behind these people as they created the markets, get our systems ready, and then react. And I think it's been very costly, very inefficient, and it's been troubling. We need to balance portfolios while controlling costs to ensure a fair rate to the end user. Interconnection and siting issues related to renewable generation projects need to be addressed. I had the luxury, I guess. I was in town last week, so I went over to FERC and listened to the morning session. If was anybody at the FERC testimony last week on renewable energies integrated into transmissions? Nobody? I see one hand up there. I sat in the meeting that morning, and being a transmission dependent person, I have a different thought. But they had a bunch of investor owns. They had a bunch of ITC, MISO, PJM were there. A few investor owns were there. And basically, they all agree that we need to do something with the transmission grid. And I do agree with that, too. What was ironic was the investor owners were saying, we need to throw the cost-benefit models out the window. Reliability is driving too much of what we're doing. And we just need to build this robust transmission, and everything will come, okay? Then they showed a wind map, a solar map, and a geothermal map. And I was sitting there, and the thought process was, you got to realize I was in the CEO fly-in for National Hydro Association, and I sat there and said, we've got half the plan. We don't have the whole plan. You don't have all the resources included. You run, and I'll show you later in the presentation, but if you took the map that Susan Story had yesterday on hydro, if you remember that map, you overlay it with the wind map and fill the gaps in, your integration for wind isn't as bad as you think it is. There's a lot of pump storage that nobody's considering that really is a transmission asset more than it is a power asset or energy asset. And so we need to complete the grid. I think that's the frustrating part for me. Cost to end users, a big factor. People do care, but I do think they're softening up. One thing I took away yesterday, listening to the last panel, is, customers do care about their rates, but I pay for my family to have 4 of these phones, $230 a month. Okay? Am I crazy? I mean, does everybody else do that too? You have, family plans? Do we care about it? No, we don't. So the trend is moving, okay? We want efficiency, we want communication. And I'm getting an email now. But that's the difference in the world. We're so hung up on cost, and I think we've got to get off there, and you're going to see where I'm headed on this. Softening of commodity markets may actually help in terms of controlling some of our costs. Stimulus money may get some help on projects, but if people are banking on the stimulus money to solve all our problems, we're going to be sadly mistaken. Policy decisions will have profound effect on the national economy. We have disproportionate regional impacts depending on the program structure. Regionalization is a huge thing, especially in public power. What works in California doesn't work in Ohio. In fact, most people do. What is the largest driver of greenhouse gas or carbon in California? What is it? Yes, it is. That's not the case in Ohio or in the Midwest, okay? And so when we see some things, we got to realize we don't have the ability to put geothermal on big power plants like they do. Housing? Yes. So there's a lot of disparity. We have 23% availability on wind generation. We do own the only 4 turbines in Ohio. It's been 5 years and nobody's built any more. So there are regional impacts that we have to consider. Need for consumers to understand the economic implications. Cap and trade, I want to just go through this. allow for a broad availability of greenhouse gas offsets. We don't know what offsets are going to count. We're trying to do offset projects today. Can't do them. You're going to take the risk. We think they're going to be agricultural based. We don't know. We have to have certainty. I don't really want to go through a lot of this. I think we need allowances on the cap and trade for these power plants. We have to slowly wean off of these. If you folks think you're going to build all this wind overnight and get this Green Express transmission line out to the Dakotas overnight, something's got to happen on the federal government then. How to balance our members' future as we go forward. We have a carbon-constrained economy, increasing costs in the industry, and organized markets. In our case, this balance must be achieved from the starting point of being asset poor, as I said. One of the things that we're looking at, and I guess as T. Boone Pickett said yesterday, I'm not a genius, I'm a fool, but I have a plan. Okay, AMP Ohio has a plan. One of the things we talk about is sustainability as a business practice. And for us, a business approach that creates long-term member value by embracing opportunities and managing risks derived from economic, environmental, and social developments. When I say that, my people say low-cost power. I say, well, how many years do you want low-cost power? Is that next year? Is that 2 years? What I look at is where are we going to be in 20 years? And that's the thought process you got to have. That's the thought process when you look at greenhouse gas or a carbon footprint, and when you look at assets in order to do things. What we did is hired R.W. Beck. It's a national firm, and we did an optimized resource model. And what we did is we spent $1 million on this model, and we can do it for each one of our members. And what we considered was renewable portfolio standards. We can put in 10%, 15%. We put in carbon. I can put the Lieberman Warner bill in. I can use the EEI model, and I can tell you where we're going to be. Okay? And it'll look at the wind, it'll look at the availability, it looks at the forecast of what I buy on the market if I do nothing. In the worst case scenario, highest cost, highest risk. What was it? Doing nothing. Staying on the market. Doing nothing. Okay? Not the option for us. What we did is identified the need for 2,000 megawatts of additional base load. We are going to take control of our cost and our assets. Okay? Right now I'm posting collateral against power supply. I hope the collateral I posted, they don't go bankrupt because they're going to take the money and I have to replace the power. Now the power is cheaper than I'm posting, but that's the world we deal with today. We want to get off that. There's too much uncertainty. What we're going to do is build 2,000 megawatts of additional base load capacity by 2013. Self-build was judged the best option for us. We're aggressively developing our own assets. We've got about 1,368 megawatts of clean, high-tech coal technology in 2 projects. We are building, as we speak, 300 megawatts of run-of-the-river hydroelectric power plants on the Ohio River. We're reviewing feasibility of approximately 100 megawatts of new wind and landfill gas. We have had landfill gas contracts in Ohio for about 12 years now. And we're also considering new solar. We're looking at financial hedges to offset our carbon risk. We trade on the Chicago Climate Exchange. We do that today. We're trying to get intelligent intellectual capital on it and understand the markets. We're pursuing a portfolio of carbon-based offset projects. Biggest thing we're doing, though, is we're pursuing energy efficiency. I'm going to go through this fast. I don't need to explain to you folks what EE is. I think the big thing is here's our portfolio. The red hatched up there is our open positions even after we build in 2013, okay? So we have a lot of room for energy efficiency. What's critical about energy efficiency is how do you get there? We have nobody in our shop that knows how to do it. What we've done is teamed with Vermont Energy Investment Corporation. They did the mandated state program in Vermont. They're good at it. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. APPA is also helping with the members. They've got a pretty robust campaign out there right now. This is the way we're going. The key is to be a national leader. AMP Ohio would seek to achieve a goal of about 1% annual savings for its members between the 2015 and 2017 timeframe. What's key is the last bullet down there. If we can do this, we can cut our load growth in half, and it basically, in essence, avoids 272 megawatts of additional capacity. Now, this is, I've got the members decoupling. You're going to reduce my revenue with energy efficiency? You guys got to be crazy. You know what we're calling this project? This is an energy efficiency power plant. Okay? It's pretty simple. For $40 a megawatt, you'll do EE. You know what a new coal plant would be or a new nuclear plant would be? You got it. Okay? It's pretty simple math. I would tell you it's a little less than that, but based on nuclear would be high. But $109 minimum to $115 on coal per megawatt hour, 20-year levelized bus bar cost starting in 2014. I've got the models, okay? I know what it costs. That depends on, that's a Lieberman Warner bill at this point. So it's a no-brainer for us. It's very simple. We just got to educate our public power members and the elected officials. In conclusions, I'll be real short. Industry has changed and utilities need new strategies. We must work a lot harder and a lot smarter. Government can't stop at regulation, must be partners in finding solutions from both a financial and technical standpoint. We need to have workable incentive programs. We need to have research and development. We've heard a lot about that. We need to recognize regionalization. We must set the blueprint. As I said, we've been chasing the blueprint. We have no goals. We have no defined standards that we're supposed to meet here. Must allow technology to catch up. Wind, this stuff's not all going to, if you think you can put 200,000 megawatts of wind in overnight, it's not going to happen, okay? It's got to be ramped up, and transmission's the same way. Government must solve the business model, must resolve its business model. Let me tell you, this stimulus money is going to take a while to roll out. I've got the Corps of Engineers that I can't get 404 permits out because they forgot to do the 408, and they couldn't figure out the 408. Okay, the government, I'm serious. I used to work for government. We've got to change our business model. I went into the fly-in. You know what the biggest issue was? How do we speed the NEPA process up? It does need to be sped up. And government needs to make some changes. Transmission must be part of the solution. I do not believe that T. Boone Pickens has the solution. The solution of cram down on transmission is not the solution. I had RTOs and energy markets crammed down, okay? When I sit in Ohio, I was supposed to pay the RTO's market-based rates to incentivize generation and transmission to be built. My consumers and my members are tired of cram down and inefficient programs. Let's come up with it, but let's include all the resources, wind and solar. I believe that wind will play a very important role. I believe solar is going to play a bigger role than people are getting credit for. They are driving down the cost and increasing the efficiencies. It is going to be easier to install, permitting-wise. You've got the Walmarts of the world and the big box and the warehouses that are going to want to put these panels on their roofs. I think we're underestimating energy efficiency, demand-side management. When I sat in the FERC meeting, everybody blew off demand response, energy efficiency, behind-the-meter dispersed generation. I think it's going to play a bigger role than everybody wants to give it credit for. The industry must continue to develop new generation technologies that lead to the balanced portfolios that include state-of-the-art fossil fuel, a range of renewable technologies, and energy efficiency. And it cannot anoint one technology as the answer. I was at FERC, Mr. Spitzer, and I said, Mark, why is wind the Santa Claus? He says, I don't know, but everybody wants Santa Claus to come every year. So, and it is, and they were smart at doing it. I believe it's very important for us. As far as, this is the map I was talking about. If you look in where I live in Ohio, and if you overlay, all I'm saying is let's overlay all the resources of all the technologies and then decide what the transmission grid should look like. Because this is what we're realizing the transmission grid should look like. Hydro, if you look at there in that white spot, fills in on both sides of that wind corridor, fills in a lot of resources. And I think you need to incorporate that run-of-the-river and all the hydro. Do you realize there's 90,000 megawatt hours of available hydro capacity in the country? There is only 3% of the existing locks and dams or dams in this country have hydropower on them. Do you realize that wind in Ohio is 23% availability? Our run-of-the-river hydros are 60 to 65% availability. I can schedule my energy the next day without any problem on hydro. I have no idea what I'm getting in Ohio on my wind turbines the next hour. We drop these behind a large member's utility so we can just manage it that way. So I think there's a lot of solutions to these problems. Public power-wise, we have a long-term business model, so we'll be well-positioned. We're conservative, but we're innovative, and we're customer-focused. Lastly, I forgot to bullet financially. We have solid credit ratings from the rating agencies. Now, I'm not so sure how many people care about that today, but I think we're well-positioned in the future. Thank you very much.